What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, how to self-improve and why it doesn't matter. So, when people, particularly guys, start to self-improve, they want to improve their health, their wealth, and their social. Okay? Health is gonna include either gaining more muscle or getting leaner, assuming you're an average guy with no health issues. Wealth is gonna include making more money via either starting a business or having a career change or pursuing a career that generates higher income. And social is pretty much about having a better quality of acquaintances and friends, as well as pursuing dating if the dating life is non existent, or simply improving the quality of the dates and companions. Now, in order to do all of these, the one thing that a person needs to consider as they pursue that journey is to have a vision of the future version of themselves. What does the future version of them look like, act like, speak like, live like? And then work backwards in terms of putting a plan together, step by step, with timelines and actions in order to create this new version of themselves. God, I love coffee. Okay. So, self-improvement. It's done with the goal of basically getting more out of life, achieving this level of happiness and life experience at which point an individual presumes and assumes they're going to finally feel happy, complete, and accomplished. It's about overcoming the self, the existing self, in order to reach a higher self. It's about progression, transcendence, becoming more, becoming who you are meant to be, breaking through either self-imposed or externally imposed limitations. That's all self-improvement really is about, okay? And everybody is doing it to achieve or obtain something. There's always a cookie or a goal at the end to be accomplished, to be achieved. And once this goal is accomplished, once you finally put your hand in the jar and reach to that cookie, you are finally gonna get what you want. That blast of buttery, carby, sugary sweetness that is gonna be euphoric, and you can finally have the enjoyment and bliss that comes from, reaching out or reaching down in the jar to grab that cookie. And it's happy ever after, thereafter. At least that's theoretically how it works. So that's self-improvement. Now, why does it not matter? It doesn't matter because you can do all of this, all of it, and nothing, absolutely nothing changes nor improves. If you are looking to improve your health, you realize that the discipline and the regiment and routine you have to follow from dieting to working out just makes you absolutely miserable. If you are looking to improve your wealth, you start to realize that you have to do things you don't want to do in order to generate higher levels of wealth. And that, generally speaking, entails doing what the customer wants, not what you want. In most cases, predominantly. Okay? And when it comes to making friends and dating, you start to understand that in these two scenarios, socially speaking, you are only as good as your utility to your dates or to your male friends. And as you go through this journey, you start to arrive at certain realizations that the things you have to do to improve, not only are they difficult and unappealing and challenging, but also you start to realize that perhaps you don't want to self-improve, that you are happy the way you are, and the virgin you sought, you wanted to chase in terms of improving yourself, isn't really worth it, nor is it what you want. So through this journey, you arrive at realizations, and these realizations come through taking action and executing. But without doing that, without going on the journey, you wouldn't know that. Additionally, you can do everything right. You can finally get in that great shape, become strong, healthy, good looking. You can make more money. You can finally date the attractive women that you thought were out of your league. Make friends with the men you wanted to surround yourself with. And you just do all of the work, and none of these outcomes materialize. In theory, what I've just mentioned is what you should accomplish because you've put in the effort. But in practice, just because you put in effort does not mean you get the results. And it does not mean you will get the results you thought after. So, where does that leave us? A good way to look at this is the quote by Tyler Durden from the movie Fight Club. Self-improvement is masturbation. And I remember watching this movie as a kid, and I was like, what is he talking about? I mean, and the irony of it is that he is exactly, from a physical standpoint and personality standpoint at least, everything that the character of, I believe the other character opposite to Brad Pitt was Jim Norton, wanted to be, right? So it's the opposite of Jim Norton, and essentially Tyler Durden, Brad Pitt in the movie, was correct. You can do all of it, and it doesn't mean anything. It's like, it's useless, okay? It's an exercise in futility. And here's why. It's an exercise in futility because you are who you are. As much as 50% of you is genetics and the other 50% is how nature and not nature, your environment has shaped you, more or less your baseline is your genetics. Okay? And anytime you try to stray away from your nature, from your temperament, from your natural capabilities, it's not going to be a great endeavor. It's always going to make you feel miserable. It's always going to be work. And compared to somebody who perhaps is born with certain abilities, it's just not going to match in terms of effort and outcome. But most importantly is that a lot of the time, and that was what the movie is alluding to, a lot of the time when people go on self-improvement, and particularly guys, they're doing it for others, for external reasons. And when you do that, all you're really doing is putting band-aids on the outside, okay? So you're putting one band-aid after the others, everything on the outside, right? But even when you achieve all of that external stuff, you're still left with the internal mess, which without your internal world being in a good place, doesn't matter how much money you make, doesn't matter how healthy you look on the outside, it doesn't matter how many relationships you have, if on the inside you still feel broken, undeserving, unaccomplished, nothing is enough. And this is also a part of the message of the movie, when in the scene where Brad Pitt is sitting with Jim, and basically they're having a pitcher of beer, and Jim Norton was talking about all the stuff he lost in his condo fire, and Brad Pitt tells him, the things you own end up owning you. And that was another, deep code from that movie. And one part of it is that basically you don't really own anything, so why are you committing to something that practically you're going to lose all of it, and you just end up being a slave to the things you own. But most importantly, was implicit in that message is that you really don't need anything outside of yourself. And a lot of the time you need things outside of yourself is because you're not happy with what's within you. And the biggest thing is to be happy within. Your inner world, your inner thoughts. If that is not in a good place, if it's not in a good shape, it does not matter what you do on the outside from a self-improvement standpoint. So this is why self-improvement doesn't really matter, okay? It really doesn't. And the older I get, the more I realize that. First of all, it's a futile exercise, and here's why. We're all gonna end up pretty much expired sooner rather than later. The clock starts counting the moment we're born. And you're more or less born equipped with what you need, okay? You don't really need anything outside of yourself. And a lot of the things that we environmentally and socially are conditioned to believe that we need are basically the byproduct of the lacking internal worlds of those that came before us and those that dominate the culture. Think about it. Why is it, for example, that a Rolex watch has so much value? Why is it that a lot of people that wear Rolexes, and this has been my experience interacting with quite a bit of them, tend to be empty on the inside, but they will not shut up about how they afforded a Rolex, how it makes them feel special, how they feel that they belong to a very special club. This is something that has been created to provide the illusion of improvement in the form of elevated status. It's really preying on people that are predominantly lacking in internal self-worth, in internal value, people that don't feel special or different enough, that they need an external status symbol to improve on themselves. But most importantly, to demonstrate to everyone else outside of themselves that they're better. And this is just one example. And I'm not here to shit on people that actually are into horology and like watches and the mechanics and the movements and whatnot. I'm talking more about the average Rolex watch consumer, right? That's why they buy a Rolex. That's why there's quite a bit of money spent on marketing and PR for Rolex. That's why it's in a lot of movies, music, videos, and songs. It's a status symbol that is meant to elevate and differentiate. But why? What is the root cause for that need? Why does a brand like Rolex exist? Is to fill that emptiness, that lacking self-worth, that lacking rich internal world that most people just don't have. And in the case of the Rolex, you may put on a Rolex to communicate and signal that you are better, you're confident, you're accomplished, but that's all on the outside. You can put it on to convey and communicate that to others, but on the inside, you do not feel that way. And that's why the illusion of the Rolex will never matter. This is why improving on oneself by putting external band-aids will never change anything. This is just one example. There's a lot of examples I can give, but so what's the solution then? What does a person do to fix their inner world, right? So they don't have to go to the gym or diet if they don't really want to. So they don't have to slave their limited time on this earth away, making something, again, that's made up like money. Or so they don't have to put effort impressing people that really wouldn't care about them otherwise without all the external stuff. Basically, the solution to this is unconditional acceptance of the self. You start off by acknowledging and accepting your shortcomings and limitations. You start off by loving yourself, coaching yourself, and parenting yourself in the moments where you feel your lowest, in the moments where you feel that you're not worthy, in the moments where you are struggling the most. That's where you start. And then you start taking actions that are in alignment with the core of your being, with who you are and how you would like to exist and what you want to do. So it's not merely improving to, materialize a certain agenda that you don't necessarily buy into, but rather making a conscious choice in terms of what is it you want to improve for you, not for others. And most importantly is having a sense of gratitude for whatever little you have. I struggled with this personally for the longest time, gratitude. I always was chasing the next shiny thing and the next accomplishment. And no matter what I chased, achieved, obtained, or accomplished, I was never satisfied. And it's not until the last few years, especially as I'm getting older, is when I started to really appreciate and understand the importance of gratitude. So one of the things I do every morning is, as I'm grabbing a cup of coffee, like the one I just had, I will write down 3 sentences about 3 things I'm grateful for every morning. And it takes less than 5 minutes to do that. And I usually like to do that as the sun is shining. So I get up to see the sunrise as I'm having my coffee and documenting what I'm grateful for. And for the longest time, I wouldn't do this because I thought it's nonsense, it's bullshit, this doesn't work. But once I started doing this activity, it blew my mind away how happy, how energizing, and how positive and optimistic this made me feel. And just writing down using a pen or a pencil on paper 3 things in your life you're grateful for on a daily basis has such an elevating effect internally in terms of your mood, your consciousness, your awareness, that makes you just be comfortable with who you are, as well as really helps you focus and prioritize what's important to you. And if you don't have a gratitude journal, or even don't have a practice of writing down 3 things you're grateful for every morning, I highly, highly, highly recommend doing that. This is different from affirmations, which I think affirmations have their place. I personally tried them. They didn't work for me, simply because it's one thing to tell yourself what you want or what you want to be or what you want to do, and it's another to act on it. But with gratitude journaling or noting, it's something you've already, it's an action you've already taken. It's something that already exists in your life, and you're just reminding yourself of how good you have it. And this has such a powerful effect on my mental state and just my inner being, right? It's one of the ways where you enrich yourself internally, because for whatever reason we seem to forget how good we have it sometimes. Like, and to give you examples of things I'm grateful for that I would write about in the morning. Grateful for having a comfortable bed to sleep in. Grateful for having the liberty and freedom and the optionality to wake up every morning and have a slow morning, brewing a cup of espresso, watching the sunrise, and writing a gratitude note. Grateful for having a good breakfast. And it's not mind-blowing big things. It's little things, the basics, that literally just fill my inner world with richness and set my mental frame for the day and help me be optimistic and just go about my day doing my best without having to change myself or do something I don't want to do, or just taking on things outside of myself that, I would do not for myself but for others or for external gain that I wouldn't per se want, but I'm doing it because, hey, that's the thing you're supposed to do. So, to conclude this and to, I guess, sum it up is, when you go on a journey of self-improvement, it's very important for you to understand your reasons as to why you're going through that journey. And have a very, very clear vision of what the final outcome or product you hope to achieve is. But also as important is that if half the way through you realize that this is not what you thought it would be, or that the outcomes you had hoped to achieve are not what you thought they would be, have the freedom. Give yourself the permission to abort or to change course and adapt along the way as you learn through taking action. But also understand that whatever you do it for yourself. You do it for yourself, not for others, not for external incentives. All of that will come and go by and it will not last. But if you do it for yourself, if you do it for enriching your inner being, that's where the satisfaction comes from. So, this is it for how to self-improve and why it doesn't matter. All right, you guys, hopefully this has been helpful to some of you. If you have enjoyed this and found it helpful, make sure to consider subscribing to the channel, giving me a thumbs up, as well as clicking that bell notification button so you are made aware when I do make an upload. And I'm going to wrap it up here. As per usual, very much appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.